I came back to Minneapolis earlier than anyone expected, rolling my suitcase through the terminal with a kind of relief that usually follows a long trip. The cold hit fast, sharper than I remembered, but it grounded me. I moved toward the exit when a familiar voice called my name. Evelyn Carter stepped away from a bench, wrapping her scarf a little tighter as she walked up. "Richard, you're back already. I thought you were out of the country for a month." Her words stalled my breath more than the weather. "Who told you that, Charlotte?" She answered, not even hesitating. "She mentioned it last week. Said you needed time away." Something shifted under my ribs. "I never left the States," came out before I could think. Evelyn blinked, startled. "Well, then I suppose she was mistaken. Still, she's been awfully busy at your place lately. Looked like she had some kind of big event planned." The comment lingered between us. Evelyn seemed unsure whether to say more. She glanced at the crowds moving toward baggage claim, then back at me with a look I'd only seen from her once before, when her own son took advantage of her savings. "If something's off, you should look into it, Richard." I thanked her and stepped aside, letting a group of travelers pass. Charlotte's number rang once, then sent me straight to voicemail. Tried again. Same result. A quick text bounced with no reply. Evelyn touched my arm lightly. "Take care of yourself, all right?" Traffic thinned as I reached uptown. Rather than drive home, a pull steered me toward a small cafe where I'd met neighbors for years. Mark Jensen had already texted a brief "here" after Evelyn reached out to him. The timing felt abrupt, but nothing about the day had followed the rhythm I expected. Mark sat near the back shoulders hunched as if he'd been waiting with something heavy on his mind. The moment he spotted me, he rose halfway. "Richard, good you came. Evelyn said you had something to tell me." He gestured for me to sit. A half-finished mug sat near his elbow, steam long gone. His fingers tapped the table, an old habit whenever he carried tension. "So," he took a breath. "Charlotte's been hosting a big Christmas event at your place. Decorations, catering, the whole thing. Said you wouldn't be there because you're, well, not in the best state these days." Those words sat cold in my chest. What exactly did she say? That you've been confused lately, forgetting things. She told people you needed an extended break somewhere overseas. For a second, air seemed harder to draw. "Mark, you've seen me plenty. Do I look like someone who's losing it?" He didn't answer immediately. His hesitation stung more than I wanted to admit. "No," he finally replied. But she sounded convincing. Real convincing. A server placed water in front of us. Mark waited until she stepped away before leaning closer. "She also asked me to sign something a week ago. Some kind of health declaration about you." "What kind of declaration, one, that says you aren't able to manage decisions on your own?" She framed it as a formality. I refused. Didn't sit right. My hand tightened around the glass. The idea that Charlotte brought paperwork to neighbors without talking to me first scraped at old wounds I'd tried to keep buried. Why would she do that? The question slipped out, directed more at myself than him. Mark shook his head slowly. "I don't know what she's aiming for. But she's telling folks you're declining fast. Even mentioned looking into long-term care on your behalf." The conversation drifted into a silence he clearly didn't want to break, yet he pushed forward anyway. "You okay?" Richard, hard to answer. Part of me drifted back to the months after my wife passed when Charlotte barely spoke, and I convinced myself giving her space was the kindest option. Another part replayed the days I worked late thinking providing financially made up for everything else. Maybe I had missed signs resentment. Fear something I never addressed. Mark watched me with concern. "Look, I didn't want to say anything unless I was sure. But this feels off. Real off. His choice of words hit something I'd been trying to sidestep. Did she mention why she's throwing that event? She said it's business. Something she's launching. Told people she's stepping into a bigger role soon. Stepping into a bigger role on my property. With my name used as a prop to explain my absence. Questions churned. Had stress made me overlook slip-ups? Had grief blinded me to my daughter's growing desperation or ambition? And underneath it all, a quieter doubt. Had something in me really changed enough for her to seize on it? Mark leaned back, exhaling. I'm telling you this as a friend. You should go home, whatever she's doing. It's not right. He wasn't trying to alarm me. He was stating a fact as plainly as he could. His honesty steadied me in a way my own thoughts couldn't. Thank you, I said. Richard? He added before I stood. Don't wait too long. I've seen families torn apart over less. The remark wasn't meant to wound, but it carried weight. A few people brushed past our table, bundled in coats, heading toward the door. Life around us kept moving, indifferent to what had just been laid bare. Mark reached for his coat. Call me if you need anything. Nodding, I stepped around the table. Linden Hills sat only a few miles from uptown, yet the drive stretched longer than it should have. Each block carried more questions than answers. When my street finally appeared, a row of unfamiliar cars crowded both sides, spilling across my driveway, as if the house belonged to someone else entirely. Holiday music leaked through the front door, mixed with laughter that belonged to people I didn't know. I pulled over a short distance away and stepped out, locking the door behind me. My boots cut through packed snow as I approached the porch. The door wasn't even closed all the way. Voices swelled near the entry, drifting into the yard. No one looked up when I entered. Guests clustered in small groups, drinks in hand, talking over one another. A few coats lay draped over the railing I'd built years ago. Someone had moved furniture too. Tables pushed aside to make space for a buffet chairs swapped out for high stools I'd never seen before. A woman turned toward me with a smile that faded quickly. Oh, I thought you were in Europe, she said. Another guest chimed in, nodding along. Charlotte said you were taking time to rest. Something about recovery. Their assumptions washed over me, strange and distant. None of these people recognized the homeowner standing a few feet from them. And worse, Charlotte had given them a story convincing enough that no one questioned it. A path cleared when I stepped farther into the living room. Charlotte emerged from the far side, holding a glass in mid-sentence with two guests. Her eyes caught mine and the color drained from her face. The conversation halted. One of the men whispered, "Isn't that your father?" But she didn't respond. Charlotte hurried toward me, forcing a smile that wobbled at the edges. "Dad, you should have called. You weren't supposed to be back yet." "We need to talk," I said. "Not here," she muttered, tugging my sleeve. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." She guided me toward a corner near the stairs where the noise softened but didn't disappear. Her tone dropped low. "Why are you doing this? You're disrupting everything. People expect a certain impression tonight." "What impression?" "That I'm somewhere overseas. That I'm unable to make decisions about my own life." Her jaw tightened. "I never said it like that." "You implied it." "You're twisting my words," she snapped back. "I only told them you needed rest. That's all." "Evelyn and Mark heard more than that," I replied. "And they didn't hear it from strangers." She took a breath, trying to steady herself. "I'm handling things. You've been tired, distracted." I thought it was best to what? Charlotte replaced me. The question hung in the air and her eyes darted away. Whatever excuse she had prepared didn't surface. Instead, she folded her arms defensive. "You're overreacting." I'm trying to build something here. People depend on me now. What does that have to do with rewriting my reality? A guest wandered close enough to overhear a man in a navy suit holding a plate of hors d'oeuvres. He offered a friendly nod to Charlotte. "Didn't know your father was feeling well enough to join," he said. "Congrats again on the new role. Taking over the family assets is a big step." My gaze snapped toward Charlotte. The guest continued oblivious to the tension. "She told us earlier she'll be managing the estate from now on. Big responsibility." He drifted away before I could respond. Charlotte didn't move. "What estate are you managing?" I asked, the words slow and careful. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. More guests turned our way, sensing something shift. A woman near the staircase murmured to her friend, both watching with awkward curiosity. Charlotte's mask slipped further as panic surfaced in her expression. "Dad, please don't do this right now," she whispered. "You're embarrassing me. You've lied to neighbors' friends and now strangers in my home. You told people I'm no longer able to manage my own affairs." It wasn't like that, she insisted. I needed them to take me seriously. By erasing me, Charlotte pressed a hand to her forehead. "You don't understand pressure. You never understood what I deal with." Anger flickered beneath her words, tangled with something almost pleading. The combination unsettled me more than outright hostility. A line had been crossed, but she didn't seem to grasp which one or how far she had gone beyond it. Conversations around us faded as guests sensed the shift, though no one stepped closer. The distance between us felt heavier than the crowd. I stepped back first. Charlotte reached out but stopped halfway, her expression tightening again. "Can we please talk after this?" she asked. "Let me finish tonight." Guests pretended not to stare while still watching from the corners of their eyes. I didn't raise my voice or give a speech. There was nothing left to say in that moment. "I'll be in touch," I said simply. Morning came without rest. My phone stayed silent through the night, not a single attempt from Charlotte to explain anything. Rather than wait for one, I drove straight downtown and parked near the office my family had used for years. The building felt familiar enough, though a knot tightened in my chest as I walked through the revolving door. Margaret, the receptionist, greeted me with a surprised look. "Richard, you weren't on the schedule today." "I need to see Thomas," I said. "Right now." She picked up the phone immediately, her expression sharpening. A moment later, she nodded toward the hallway. "Go on back. He's expecting you." Thomas stood from his desk when I entered. He'd been our attorney since Charlotte was in grade school, a man who rarely wore any expression other than calm logic. Today, a trace of concern crossed his face. "Morning, Richard. You sounded urgent. What's going on?" "I want to review every document filed under my name this past month. Estate, medical, anything." He hesitated. "That's quite a bit of material." "Bring all of it." Thomas didn't argue further. He stepped out, returned with a thick folder, and set it before me. My hand hovered above it for a second before opening the cover. The first page made the room tilt slightly. "Transfer of residential property rights," it read, Charlotte listed as the new controlling party. A signature sat on the bottom line, a version of my name that looked close, but not close enough. "That's not mine," I said. Thomas leaned in. "It didn't match what we have on file either. I planned to call you, but it was submitted late Friday." Another document lay underneath. A petition requesting placement into a long-term care facility. Diminished capacity, it claimed. Attached were statements supposedly from a physician I'd never met. I breathed out slowly, though nothing eased. She filed all of this without my knowledge. Thomas folded his hands, choosing his words carefully. "This is a coordinated package, Richard. Someone didn't throw it together overnight." Hearing it aloud forced something to settle in me, an ache mixed with disbelief, the kind that takes time to fully absorb. Why would she go this far? I don't know, he answered gently. But these papers, if approved, would give her sweeping authority. You need to act before they advance. Each document I flipped through only deepened the pit forming in my stomach. Medical evaluations with fabricated comments, descriptions of me as forgetful, erratic, prone to confusion. None of it true. None of it even close. Thomas waited until I reached the bottom of the stack. We can file a revocation of any pending petitions. You can also block her access to your accounts and property until we sort this out. Do you want to proceed? Yes, I said. Do everything required. And update the beneficiary list. Temporarily remove Charlotte. His pen didn't move right away. Are you certain? As certain as I've ever been. He nodded, began drafting the initial revocation request, and slid a form toward me. Sign here, here, and here. This will trigger an immediate freeze on any transaction linked to her filings. My signature filled each line cleanly, a stark contrast to the clumsy imitation on the forged documents. Thomas gathered everything into a new folder. I'll file these before noon, he said. In the meantime, stay alert. If Charlotte knows you're back in town, she may attempt further action. A bitter exhale left me. She knows I'm back. Thomas didn't press for details. Some truths don't require more explanation. I thanked him and stepped out. Margaret offered a sympathetic look as I passed. No words, just recognition. A silent acknowledgement that something in my world had shifted. The street greeted me with a blanket of snow stretching down the block. Cars crawled along the avenue, tires grinding against slush. I stood still for a moment, folder tucked under my arm, letting the cold settle on my coat. The weight of everything pressed in sharper than the wind. Thoughts churned without direction. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't frustration or miscommunication. Charlotte had constructed an entire legal narrative in which I no longer existed as a capable person. The house looked almost unchanged from the street, yet stepping through the door felt like walking into someone else's life. Decorations from the party still lingered, ribbons left on the stairs, trays with crumbs, glasses abandoned on shelves. No voices now, only the leftover mess of a night I never agreed to host. Charlotte appeared near the hallway as I set my bag down. Her expression shifted quickly. Anger replaced by something softer, but strained. Dad, we need to talk, she said. Last night wasn't what you think. People exaggerated. Evelyn, Mark, they always assume the worst. That's not what this is about, I replied. She followed as I headed toward my study to gather a few papers. A false calm clung to her voice. You've been under stress? Maybe you misheard things? I can explain everything if you just slow down. Each file I placed into my bag made her step closer. She blocked the doorway when I tried to leave the room. You can't walk away like this. Not after everything I've done to keep things stable. Stable. The word tasted strange. You forged documents. Her eyes filled, instantly tears gathering with rehearsed speed. I didn't forge anything. I only signed what I had to so people would take our situation seriously. Our situation? You've been tired, distracted, withdrawn. I was trying to get ahead of a problem before it became worse. Her voice shook and she pressed a hand to her chest as if bracing for impact. You don't know the pressure I'm under. You have no idea what I'm dealing with at work, with bills, with everything. She reached for my arm. I've been trying to protect you. Protect me from what? From yourself, she whispered. The words cut deeper than any accusation so far. A part of me stepped back instinctively, as though distance could soften the blow. She sensed the opening and pushed harder. If you file anything against me, they'll think you're unstable. Do you want that? Do you want strangers judging you based on misunderstandings? The hallway felt narrower with each sentence, she added. I didn't answer, continuing toward the bedroom to collect the last of my documents. Charlotte trailed inches behind. Dad, listen. Those legal steps you started, stop them. Please. It's a massive overreaction. We can fix this if you trust me. I already trusted you, I said quietly. That's how we got here. She stood still for a moment, shoulders rising and falling as she swallowed something heavy. When I turned to leave the room, she blocked me again this time. Not with softness, but panic. If you don't withdraw those filings, everything collapses for me. Charlotte, no. You're not hearing me. Her breath came sharper. This house matters. Your accounts matter. They're all I have left to work with. What do you mean, all you have left? Her gaze darted to the floor, then back up. A tremor passed through her voice. I used the savings account. All of it. I had debts, things I needed to cover. I thought I could refill it before you noticed. The confession rippled through me slowly, like a bruise spreading. How much did you take? All Dad. I didn't have a choice. There was always a choice. She knew it too. If you pull the house away from me now, I'll lose everything. She continued stepping closer as if closing the distance could force me to bend. You're destroying my life over one misunderstanding. You drained the savings and filed to put me in a facility. I had to. I was desperate. You weren't using the money. I needed it. And you're fine. You don't even need the house the way I do. Her words tumbled fast, more frantic with each breath. You're ruining me, she said. Don't you see that a hollow ache settled in my chest? One part sorrow, one part disbelief. Her desperation didn't bring clarity. It only confirmed how far she'd ventured beyond a line she once would have respected. I stepped around her slowly. Charlotte moved to block me again, but stopped halfway, hands trembling as she pressed them together. At least think about it, she pleaded. Don't make a decision based on anger. I'm not angry, I said. Just aware. Her eyes glistened, but the tears didn't change anything. Not now. The bag felt heavier as I reached for the front door. Charlotte stayed in the hall, gripping the banister as if the house itself might collapse without her holding it in place. Please, she called after me, don't walk out. Snow clung to the porch railings untouched since the previous day. Cold air wrapped around me as I stepped outside. Her voice faded behind the door, reduced to a muffled call I couldn't make out. The call from Thomas came early, cutting through the morning with a tone I hadn't heard from him before. Richard? We received confirmation from the medical board. The physician's signature on Charlotte's filing is false. The doctor doesn't exist in their system. Someone reported it to us directly. His words pressed a deeper weight over everything I'd learned already. What does that mean for the case, I asked. It means she or someone working with her fabricated medical documents. This strengthens your position significantly. I need you to meet with a private investigator we collaborate with. He specializes in family fraud. His name is Daniel Ward. There wasn't much to say after that. He gave me the address and I left the apartment soon after. Daniel's office sat above an insurance agency in a narrow brick building near Nicollet Avenue. A small plaque on his door read, Ward Investigations. No slogan, no glossy branding, just a name and a job. Daniel greeted me with a firm handshake. Thomas filled me in. Let's go through what we have. He guided me to a table where several folders lay open. A monitor rested on one corner of the desk, paused on a still image Charlotte standing at a bank counter. Start here, Daniel said, tapping the screen. The footage played. Charlotte slid papers across the counter, my name printed clearly on the signature line. The timestamp matched a day I'd been traveling for work. Another clip followed showing her making 2 separate withdrawals each using an authorization note she'd signed herself. Banks occasionally miss this sort of thing, Daniel explained. But once we pulled the surveillance, it became clear those authorizations weren't genuine. He sorted through additional papers, laying out a pattern I hadn't expected. Withdrawals dating back 6 months. Transfers into accounts I didn't recognize. Letters she drafted with explanations that made my stomach drop, each one a thread in a fabric she'd been weaving long before I ever suspected anything. Daniel spoke plainly. This wasn't a rash decision from her. Every step shows planning. I'm sorry. The room felt smaller as he continued outlining the timeline. Not rushed, not impulsive, deliberate. That revelation sank in slowly, carving out a hollow in my chest I wasn't prepared to face. Why would she do this? The question slipped out too heavy for the air between us. I can't answer motive, Daniel replied. But the documentation is substantial. You have enough to pursue a full investigation and protect yourself legally. Logic urged me toward the next steps: court filings, protective orders, freezes on accounts. Emotion pulled the other direction, refusing to match the cold evidence with the daughter I'd raised. Both sides clashed, neither giving ground. Daniel gathered everything neatly. I'll send these to Thomas. He'll advise on what comes next. I thanked him and stepped toward the door, but he stopped me with a gentle warning. Be careful. When people feel cornered, they make unpredictable choices. The remark lingered as I headed out into the hallway. My phone buzzed the moment I stepped outside. Charlotte's name flashed across the screen. For a second I considered letting it ring out, but a mixture of dread and necessity made me answer. Her voice came out sharp, controlled, but trembling with anger. Why are you digging into my accounts? Are you trying to humiliate me? Because if you keep this up, I'll have no choice but to protect myself. Charlotte, stop, I said. This isn't a misunderstanding anymore. She ignored that. I'll tell the court how you've treated me since Mom died. You think they'll take your side? You think they won't believe you were slipping? Everyone knows you shut down after she passed. That's enough. No, she snapped. You abandoned me. Don't pretend you didn't. If you push me, I'll file a claim for emotional abuse and neglect. I swear I will. Don't test me. Her threat settled over me like a lead blanket. She wasn't pleading, this time she was maneuvering. Every sentence angled toward a new weapon she could use. Charlotte, listen to yourself, I said. This isn't how families resolve anything. You started this, she fired back. You should have just stayed gone. None of this would be happening. The call ended before I could respond. Thomas and Daniel waited in the conference room when I arrived. A stack of folders sat in the center of the table, each one labeled and color-tabbed. Neither of them wasted time. Thomas opened the first folder. We've compiled everything: medical forgeries, bank withdrawals, signatures she attempted to replicate, plus Mark's written statement. Daniel slid over a USB drive. There's also the party footage. Several guests confirmed Charlotte told them you were incapacitated. One even repeated it on video. He pressed a key on his laptop and a short clip played a guest laughing while mentioning how the daughter is stepping up now that Richard isn't all there. The words hit with more force than any forged signature. Thomas folded his hands. This is substantial. If you choose to proceed, we'll notify the authorities today. A moment passed before I answered. File it. Once we do, he said carefully, there's no turning back. Communication between you and Charlotte should cease completely. There was nothing left to salvage through conversation. The evidence on the table made that clear. I nodded and Thomas began drafting the formal submission. Daniel added, we'll request immediate asset protection and move to freeze any accounts she accessed. The decision settled over the room with a heaviness I hadn't felt before. This wasn't theory or speculation anymore. It was a legal action that would redraw the ground beneath my family. By the time the documents were finalized, the afternoon had darkened into a pale winter shade. I returned to my apartment and had barely taken off my coat when pounding erupted at the door. Charlotte pushed through the moment I opened it. Her face was flushed, breath-jagged eyes sharp with a mix of fury and fear. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Why did I get a notification that my access is frozen? You went to them, didn't you?" She shoved a folder toward me, her version of a solution. "Sign this," she insisted. "It's a settlement. We can avoid court if you just agree." I glanced at the document. 70% of my assets, houses, accounts, investments redirected to her control. "No," I said. "You haven't even read it. I've read enough." Charlotte stepped closer, voice trembling. "You don't understand. I need this. You're not using those funds, and I can fix everything if you just trust me." Trust. The word felt foreign between us. "Charlotte, you forged my name. You falsified medical records. This isn't a conversation about trust." Her composure cracked. "I was trying to build something. You left me with nothing after Mom died. Do you know how it feels to watch everything fall apart while you barely look up from your work?" The force of her words hit somewhere deep, but the logic around them twisted like wire. "You think I wanted to do any of this?" she continued. "I was drowning. I needed help and you weren't there. I didn't know I admitted." She pounded her fist against the folder. "Then let me handle things now. Sign it. Please. Don't make this harder." Her breath echoed through the apartment, uneven and urgent. I said nothing. Refusal hung in the air even before she realized it was final. "You're really not going to," she whispered. "No." The shift in her expression came slowly shock. First, then bitterness, and finally something colder. "Then I have nothing left to lose." She stepped back, grabbed her coat from the chair, and stormed toward the hallway. The door slammed hard enough to rattle a picture frame. The apartment fell still, though my pulse hadn't settled when the phone rang. Daniel's name appeared on the screen. "Richard." "I need to update you immediately," he said, when I answered. "We uncovered a wire transfer from Charlotte's account, large recent, and directed to someone flagged in a prior fraud investigation. This individual was involved in a scheme that targeted people in financial distress." A chill ran along my spine. She gave them money. All signs point to yes. This may explain the missing savings. She may be tied deeper into that circle than we assumed. A pause stretched between us. Daniel continued. "If that's the case, you're dealing with more than a family dispute. You're dealing with potential criminal involvement. I recommend granting me full authority to pursue asset recovery and prepare a formal criminal complaint." The window near me rattled from a passing gust. I pictured Charlotte's face as she'd left cornered, frantic, clinging to whatever she believed would save her. But the truth was no longer murky. It stood squarely in front of me. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Authorization? Written and signed? Once I have it, I can move immediately." A long breath left me. The decision had already formed the moment he spoke about the transfer. "I'll sign it. I'll send the document to your email now. Print it, sign it, and send me a scan. The sooner the better." After the call ended, I moved toward the desk where my printer sat Daniel's email already blinking on the screen. The form opened with a single click, followed by the scratch of my pen against paper. When the scanner finished its task, I attached the file and hit send. The formal notice arrived on a Wednesday morning. I read it once, then folded it and set it on the counter. Charlotte had been charged document forgery, financial fraud, elder exploitation. Legal terms that looked clinical on paper, but each one carried the weight of what she'd chosen. She lost access to every account tied to my name. Her employer placed her on leave. Neighbors who once praised her enthusiasm now kept their distance. None of it felt like victory. People assume justice brings relief. What it brought me was a kind of hollow understanding. The worst part wasn't the money or the lies, it was realizing how far a bond can fracture when you aren't paying attention. By the end of the month, I moved into a modest apartment near Bide Makaska. A smaller space suited me. The lake stretched behind the building, and though winter still clung to it, patches of water showed through where the ice thinned. The place felt steady, unburdened by history. My days settled into a new rhythm without much effort. Morning started with a walking group that met near the public path. Retired teachers, veterans, a few widowers. People who understood that starting over doesn't have an age limit. Conversations meandered from weather to family to recipe someone wanted to try. Ordinary talk, the kind I hadn't realized I missed. Afternoons I spent volunteering at the community center, sorting donated clothes, helping with paperwork, sometimes reading forms to seniors who needed an extra set of eyes. It grounded me in ways I couldn't name. One evening, a knock at my door startled me from sorting old bills. When I opened it, Evelyn stood there holding a small container wrapped in foil. "I tried a new recipe," she said. "Figured you might want to be the test subject." "Come in," I told her. She stepped inside and eased into a chair by the table. Neither of us rushed to fill the air with talk. She simply watched me open the container, cinnamon rolls still warm. After a moment, Evelyn spoke softly. "How are you holding up?" "I'm getting through," I said. She nodded, accepting that answer for what it was. No probing, no advice, no attempt to reinterpret the path that got me here. She sat with me the way someone sits with a neighbor after a long storm, present, unintrusive, steady. "You know," she said after a while, "sometimes the hardest part isn't what people do to us, it's realizing how long we kept making excuses for it." Her words didn't sting. They settled in gently, the way truth sometimes does when delivered without judgment. Evelyn stayed a few more minutes, then stood to leave. "If you ever need company for those walks, let me know," she said. "I will." The door closed behind her, and the apartment returned to its calm hum. No rush of relief, no collapse into grief, just a quiet acceptance that this was my life now, and it was enough. Days continued with the same steady rhythm. I organized my financial records, met with Thomas to finalize the last round of paperwork, and spent more time at the lake path. The ice melted in slow streaks, revealing darker water beneath. Seasons tend to move at their own pace, paying no mind to what people are healing from. One afternoon, I gathered a few folders I needed to review. Legal documents, receipts, a checklist Daniel had sent regarding asset recovery. Nothing dramatic, just the ongoing work of rebuilding boundaries. Before heading out, I locked the apartment door and slipped the folders under my arm. A small breeze met me as I stepped onto the landing, carrying the faint sounds of people walking dogs below. For the first time in a long while, my thoughts didn't circle back to the house I left behind. It existed as a chapter, nothing more. A place where things cracked long before they shattered. I walked toward the stairwell, steady and unhurried, letting the day take me wherever it needed to.